Yeah, speaker, VIP speaker, Jason Thomas.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Good afternoon. So my name is Jason Thomas. For those I haven't had the opportunity to meet, I want to first say thank you to all those who've gone and given such powerful truths today and yesterday, and I look forward to tomorrow. I want to speak about mentorship and the power that it's impacted me. And I'm going to go back to what I truly believe is my earliest memory. It's maybe 2, 3 years old. And I was with my grandfather at my great-grandma Marthy's house, and he was teaching me how to play cards and solitaire. He went through and taught me, and then he went to his Sudoku, which he loved to do. Now, parents will recognize this, and I will say that my poker face has gotten better over the years, but I so nonchalantly put the card somewhere I knew it wasn't supposed to be. And I waited. And the pause was just long enough that I thought, I can get away with it. And with his sixth sense, he didn't even look up, and he's like, Jason, it makes absolutely no difference to me if you cheat yourself in a game of solitaire. So that's when he looked me in the eyes and said, you will always know. And if you always know, what is the point of playing? Now, obviously, as a 2, 3-year-old, took the card, went back and playing, didn't realize that this was my first introduction to the concept of integrity, which is a cornerstone of leadership, cornerstone of the Naval Nuclear Power Program that I spent over 10 years of my life in, cornerstone of who I am. So early on, I also knew he was my mentor. He was in the Navy in Korea, got out, worked for GA Aviation for over 30 years. He was a pilot. Add Top Gun in there, I knew what I wanted to be. I was going to be a combat aviator because Ghostbusters wasn't hiring, so I knew what I was able to do. So I played sports, football, baseball, growing up. Never been injured. Just stick that aside. And my freshman year of high school, as you can probably tell from right now, I was an intimidating 4'10", 95-pound safety. I was not a starter. However, the starter, TJ Elliott, had missed some practices and wasn't going to start. He had to sit the first half. Now, I think it's only because I was too much a munchkin that the quarterback couldn't see me, that the first play from scrimmage, interception. And I was fast. And all I saw was nothing but green field, no one around me. The highlights of all my amazing football careers in my front, and I am destroyed by 3 offensive linemen. I held onto the ball, but not an ounce of air inside my body. So it was not a hard stretch to realize that since I knew I needed someone else to pay for my college, it wasn't going to come from football. It wasn't going to come from band. I was extremely blessed that my high school had a NJROTC program where I met my first 2 professional mentors, Lieutenant Colonel Ken Knotts, former executive officer of Paris Island, whose first year of teaching was my year as a freshman, and Senior Chief James Griffin introduced me to leadership, to responsibility, at an age where most of the time that doesn't happen. So I committed to go and get the ROTC scholarship, because you got to have a college degree, got a commission, then you can be a pilot. And to my surprise, I did. Earned a full ride scholarship to The Ohio State University with the unit. And on the unit, you had to have a couple activities that you did. All right, drill and the flag football team. 2.5 weeks into my freshman year, while practicing for the flag football team, A teammate ran into me from behind and just happened to rupture a blood vessel and shear my hamstring. And I was on crutches and physical therapy for the better part of 2 years. And now my dream was done. I'm driving home from Columbus in my 1992 Buick LeSabre that my grandfather had helped me purchase. That's transmission no longer wanted to work, so I was stuck in low gear on this slow drive back home. And I was ready to fall in true despair. And when I call him and I ask him, what do I do now? It's like, well, Jason, you can't control that you've got to heal. So you might as well find something worthwhile to do while that's happening. So I did. I got up. I called around to my former employers, and luckily I was able to get a job installing the first digital voting machines after the hanging chads, for those who remember. And then I was a manager at Blockbuster. And there was a period of time that I was embarrassed that I wasn't going to be a pilot. I'm not going to be an officer. But inside of me, service was more important. So, in my grandfather's footsteps, I enlisted into the Navy, into the most difficult program that they had, outside the SEALs, academically. The Naval Nuclear Power Program. It's the most academically challenging military program in the world. And there I was in good command climates, bad command climates, but learned the fundamentals and the power of empowered leadership. And I had the rare opportunity to get shot off the carrier at the end of deployment. So at least I got to do that, to see the birth of my triplets, because they were high risk. 558, 559, and 601, they were born. The son was 3 pounds, 10 ounces. The girls were a little bit heavier. They had stolen the food. And we were unbelievably blessed. They didn't need oxygen. They didn't need anything more than weight. 10 days, 11 days. Got to bring the 3 of them home. Now, I still had some years of service yet. So my wife, who's just miraculous, had 2 3-year-olds by herself, finishing college. 2017, I leave active duty. And I am eternally grateful that my children got to have a relationship with Papa Jack. And in 2019, when after multiple heart attacks, beating back brain cancer multiple times with his spicy chili, my grandfather passed away. And when I was by his bedside, I didn't cry, because I was so proud of the legacy and impact that he made. Now, when I came home to tell my children and my wife, that was a different story. To do nothing more than fall to the ground and hold them and cry. He was a mentor and glue for so many inside the family. And I did speak at his funeral along with others. And I described what he's been to me. He was a North Star, that regardless of how stormy the ocean was or how dark the clouds would be, eventually would part and I would know where to go. But then COVID happened. I'm involuntarily recalled to active duty. I got to extend 3 years for that. And I go out now doing an deployment that I wanted to avoid for my children. And when I get there, I tell them, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to make an impact. And my chief looks at me, and he says, I'm sorry, you're going to need to readjust your expectations because there is no work for you to do. Now, in some shipyards, they had work. Other rates had work. Electricians, we had none. And this was supposed to be a 13 to 15-month deployment. And we knew how important it was when the reserves had to pay for their own dollars. We demobilized within 2 weeks. Break your leases, go home. So I started questioning my identity in service. And now I don't have my roadmap. My job at GE is gone. that's been refilled. So I go work for a plastics manufacturing company. Start as a manufacturing manager, then a plant manager. And the more I put in trying to do the empowered leadership, the development, right, of these teams, the support just didn't have the fallback. It wasn't making the value impact. One day in the summer, I wake out of bed, sweating, collapse. I think I have a heart attack. Over 200 BP in the ambulance ride. Find out my heart is fine. I'm having nocturnal panic attacks now, which quickly turned into panic attacks all the time. As a leader, it's important to be out with your people. At the site, I had an office that was out on the floor, big window, no blinds, present for my people. I had to move myself to the big executive office up front that is in a ghost town of cubicles from the place when it used to be bigger, so I could go to my meetings and my phone calls, so I could shut the door with no window and collapse to the ground. Now, fortunately for me, I had a support network of my family, of my wife, and a recognition of what mental health crises would be. And I asked for help. And while slow, eventually did get connected through the VA and got the help that I need. And the journey's not over. But as January 1 came on board with my father into his company, to which there was one, and today we have an infrastructure, a portfolio for 6, including a leadership, including a nonprofit. And that only happened because I realized my mentor gave me more than just the guiding light. Because when the sky wouldn't part and the storms wouldn't calm, I realized that he also gave me a compass. He gave me a compass and empowered me to set the course of my own ship. And when I did that, the clouds did eventually part, and I could see him once again. I ask everyone here who is a leader, and to not give too much away, everyone has the ability to be a leader. Tools, will to act. That's it. Take care of your people. The Navy had a term, intrusive leadership. Know your people, especially around mental health. Look for the signs, ask the questions, get them the help. Leadership will be another day. My name is Jason Thomas, and I thank you for your time.